The world outside was vast, free, and filled with endless possibilities. Yet I wasn't part of it. Instead, I sat behind a locked door, trapped in a golden cage, staring out at the life that was stolen from me. The man I once loved, the man I had once trusted with everything, had turned into my captor. Ethan. The name once brought warmth to my heart. Now it sent a chill down my spine. It hadn't always been this way. I had once been a naive girl, deeply in love, believing in the fairy tale of forever. I had trusted Ethan blindly, believing he would cherish and protect me. But love had blinded me to the truth. Ethan didn't want a partner. He wanted a possession. Started with small things. The way he would correct my words in front of others. The way he would decide who I could meet, what I could wear. First, I thought it was just his way of caring. Then he started isolating me. I stopped receiving messages from friends. My social life faded overnight. I was told they weren't good for me, that they were jealous of our love. I believed him, until it was too late. The day Ethan locked me away, I didn't even realize what was happening. One moment, I was in the mansion he had promised would be our home. The next, I was a prisoner. I had tried to leave. The first time I walked toward the gates, only to be stopped by his guards. The master said, "You're not to leave," they told me. Master. Not fiancé. Not lover. I laughed nervously. You're joking, right? The silence that followed was deafening. That was the moment I knew. I wasn't getting out. Ethan had planned this from the start. First I fought. I screamed, demanded to leave, begged the servants to help me. But their faces were cold, emotionless. They were loyal to him, not me. I waited for him to explain, to tell me this was a mistake. But when Ethan finally came to my room that night, his expression was calm. "Elena," he said, his voice smooth, patient. "You're overreacting." My body trembled with rage, with fear, but I forced my voice to be steady. "You locked me in here, Ethan. Why?" He sighed as if I was a child throwing a tantrum. He stepped forward, reaching out to cup my face. His touch once made my heart race, now it made my stomach turn. "You don't understand," he said softly, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. "You're mine, Elena. You always have been. This is for your own good." My breath caught. Mine? I had never been his. I was never anyone's. I shoved his hand away, my voice sharp. "Let me go, Ethan." His calm mask cracked for just a second. His jaw clenched. "You still don't get it, do you?" He took a step closer, forcing me to step back until my back hit the wall. "You don't need freedom, Elena. You need me." My hands shook. I had been so blind. This wasn't love. This was ownership. Days turned into weeks. I tried everything, pleading, reasoning, even silent resistance. But Ethan was always one step ahead. When I refused to eat, he had the maids bring my favorite meals, pretending to be the caring fiancé. When I ignored him, he would sweet-talk me, convincing me that this was the best life for me. And when I finally screamed at him, telling him I hated him, telling him I would never love him again, he just smiled. "You'll change your mind," he said simply. "You'll see. I have all the time in the world, my love." I was drowning in a nightmare, one that I couldn't wake up from. And worst of all, the world believed I had disappeared by choice. Ethan controlled everything. The media, the authorities, everyone believed I had left to travel, that I had chosen to live a quiet life away from the public eye. No one was looking for me. No one was coming. I was completely alone. The day my last hope died was the day I saw Ethan's engagement announcement. I had been sitting by the window, staring out at the vast gardens I could never walk through, when I heard the TV playing in the next room. I froze when I heard his name. I scrambled toward the sound, my pulse racing. The image on the screen nearly stopped my heart. Ethan stood beside a beautiful woman, his hand in hers, smiling at the cameras. Ethan Vanderbilt has officially announced his engagement to Lady Celeste Aldrich, ending years of mystery surrounding his love life. The words blurred as the room spun around me. No, no, no. He had me locked away. And yet he was engaged to someone else. I stumbled backward, my legs weak beneath me. My breath came in ragged gasps, my chest tightening. After everything, after stealing my freedom, after taking years of my life, he was going to live happily ever after? like I had never existed. My fingers clawed at my own arms, rage and betrayal consuming me whole. I was a prisoner, and he was celebrating. Something inside me snapped. I would never escape. I would never be free. Ethan had stolen everything from me. Then why should I keep fighting? The world had already erased me. Maybe it was time I erased myself too. The days blurred into nights, and the nights into endless darkness. I stopped keeping track of time. What was the point? There was no morning, no evening, no difference between one day and the next. It didn't matter whether the sun rose or set. I would never see it. I was already dead. Ethan had made sure of that. The moment I saw his engagement announcement, something inside me had shattered beyond repair. For so long I had clung to hope. I had believed that if I waited, if I tried hard enough, I could escape, that one day, he would get bored of this twisted game and set me free. But now I knew the truth. He was never going to let me go. Because I was nothing to him. Just a toy. Just a game. Just a woman who had outlived her usefulness. And I was tired. Tired of hoping. Tired of waiting. Tired of pretending that I had a future. Ethan had already erased me from the world. Maybe it was time I erased myself too. I made my decision that night. The moonlight poured through the tiny gap in my window, casting pale shadows on the cold marble floor. I traced those shadows with my fingers, memorizing them, as if they were the last thing I would ever see. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel anything. That scared me more than the thought of dying. I reached for the letter I had written the night before, my hand steady as I folded it neatly. It was short, simple, just 4 words. I was never free. I placed it on the bedside table and turned toward the window. My prison. The one I had stared out of for years, dreaming of a world I would never reach. I stepped onto the chair, then onto the ledge. The wind howled, cold and unforgiving, welcoming me into its embrace. I closed my eyes, and I let go. But when I opened them again, I was back. I gasped, my body jerking upright, my heart slamming against my ribs. I wasn't dead. I wasn't broken. I was back in time. The air was thick with smoke, the heat curling against my skin. Screams echoed through the halls, fire alarms blaring. The art building was on fire. My mind spun as the memories rushed in like a flood. The betrayal, the imprisonment, the years of suffering. I had died. And now, I was here. Before it all happened. Before Ethan had locked me away. Before he had stolen my future. I felt my heartbeat slow, my fingers curling into fists. This wasn't just a second chance. This was my revenge. My lungs burned from the thick smoke curling through the air. The sharp scent of scorched wood and melting fabric stung my nose, my body coated in a thin layer of sweat. The screams were deafening. Students ran past me, their terrified faces blurred in the flickering glow of the flames consuming the building. Heat pressed against my skin, crawling up the walls like hungry beasts, licking at the ceilings as if they intended to swallow everything whole. And yet I didn't move, because I had already lived this moment before. I had stood in this exact hallway, feeling this exact fear. But back then I was different. I had been naive, weak, blind. I had trusted Ethan. And that trust had destroyed me. But not this time. Not again. The past life came rushing back. The moment Ethan lured me in with sweet words. The moment he slowly tightened his grip, controlling every part of my life until I couldn't breathe without his permission. The moment he locked me away, discarded me like a forgotten doll. And the moment I had stepped off that ledge, letting go of everything. I had died in that life. But fate wasn't done with me. I had been given a second chance. And this time, I wasn't going to waste it. Elena, what are you doing? The building is on fire. A hand grabbed my wrist, shaking me from my thoughts. I turned, my breath catching as I saw him. Ethan. His face was younger, untouched by the years of cruelty I had once endured. His fake concern was painted perfectly across his face. The last time I stood here, I had run to him. I had trusted him when he said he would protect me. And what did he do? He locked me away. He stole my life. Not this time. I swallowed the disgust curling in my throat and forced my lips into a soft, trembling smile, just as he would expect. Ethan. My voice came out small, uncertain. I'm scared. His grip on my wrist tightened, his face immediately softening, a look of satisfaction flickering in his eyes. This was what he wanted. Control. "We need to get out of here," he said urgently, his hand sliding down to lace our fingers together. His touch once made my heart flutter. Now it made my stomach turn. I hesitated, letting my fear look real. "I don't know which way to go." His smile was reassuring. Or at least it was supposed to be. "That's why I'm here," he murmured, leading me toward the west exit. I almost laughed. How predictable. I knew this hallway. I knew this stairwell. The same one he had led me down before. Only for me to never walk out again. This was the first step in his game. This was where he would pull me in, making me believe he was the only one I could rely on. But I wasn't his pawn anymore. I had already played this game once. And this time I was the one pulling the strings. As we ran, I kept my eyes lowered, my steps small, keeping up the illusion of weakness. Ethan moved swiftly, his grip firm but not tight enough to hurt. He was controlling, but he still wanted me to willingly follow. I could hear the frantic shouting of students evacuating, the panicked orders of faculty members. But this hallway was empty. It always had been. The perfect place for him to make his move. And sure enough, he did. "Elena," he said, slowing his pace as we reached the stairs. He turned to me, his voice soft, comforting, but his eyes calculating. "I know you're scared," he continued. "Let me carry you." My stomach twisted. In my past life I had nodded. I had let him pick me up, let him hold me like something precious. And then? He had locked me away. I wasn't making that mistake again. I let my body tremble, stepping back just slightly, hesitating. I don't know." His jaw tightened for half a second, but then his expression melted into patience again. "Elena," he murmured, stepping closer. "You trust me, don't you?" I looked into his deep brown eyes, the ones I had once drowned in. But now, I saw them for what they were. A trap. I bit my lip, hesitating. Then after a long pause I nodded. "Okay." His satisfaction was immediate. I saw the flash of victory in his gaze. He thought he had won. He thought I was falling into his hands again. But he had no idea. I was leading him straight to his downfall. He lifted me into his arms just like before. And for a moment everything felt the same. The way he held me, the way he moved, the way he pretended to be the perfect man. I played my part perfectly. I clutched at his shirt, burying my face into his chest, letting out a small, shaky breath. He tightened his hold slightly, his grip possessive. This was what he had always wanted, for me to rely on him. But he wasn't leading me anywhere. I was leading him. We reached the stairwell. The air was thick with smoke, the fire growing louder behind us. Ethan adjusted his hold on me. This was it. The moment where, in my past life, he had whispered sweet words and locked me away. But this time, I struck first. I twisted sharply, shifting my weight in his arms. Ethan's balance wavered. "What?" Before he could finish, I yanked myself from his grasp, throwing my weight toward the side. Ethan stumbled. His foot slipped. And in the next second, he fell. He crashed down the stairs, his body twisting as he tumbled violently, hitting the concrete over and over again. He slammed against the landing, his breath coming in sharp, pained gasps. I slowly descended the stairs, taking my time, my heartbeat steady. I crouched beside him, tilting my head as I studied him. His eyes were wide, filled with shock, pain, and fear. He had always been the one in control. But not anymore. I leaned in slightly, my voice soft, dangerous. "You wanted me to trust you, Ethan." I smiled, the same smile he once gave me. "I did." His breath hitched. "Now it's your turn." His eyes widened in terror. And then, for the first time in my life, I walked away first. The world around me blurred into the background as I stepped away from Ethan, leaving him crumpled at the bottom of the stairs. His once confident, powerful presence was reduced to nothing more than a broken man. Gasping for air, his limbs trembling. For the first time, he was the weak one. And I had never felt stronger. I didn't run. I didn't need to. I had already won. I walked out of the burning building, stepping into the open air as sirens blared, red and blue lights flashing across the night. The once grand art building was now a blackened skeleton, the fire consuming everything inside. For years I had been the one burning. Now, I was finally free. The paramedics swarmed the area, and the moment I stumbled forward, a pair of strong hands caught me. "Elena!" One of the teachers gasped, holding me upright. "Are you hurt?" I hesitated for only a second before letting my body go limp. I didn't have to pretend too much. My lungs burned, my skin was covered in soot, and my limbs trembled from adrenaline. I think I hit my arm," I whispered, wincing as I touched my shoulder. "Let them focus on me. Let them see me first." The paramedics quickly wrapped a blanket around me, guiding me toward the ambulance. I cast a glance behind me. Ethan was being dragged out of the building, his body half conscious, his face twisted in pain. His leg bent at an unnatural angle, his breathing shallow. He was alive. Good. Let him feel every second of this. I turned away as the whispers started. What happened in there? Elena was with Ethan, right? Did she save him? I let the questions swirl, planting doubt before I even spoke a single word. Because this time, the story would be mine to tell. By the time we reached the hospital, rumors were already spreading. The school's social media pages exploded, flooded with posts, comments, and theories. I scrolled through my phone, the corners of my lips twitching upward as I read the first headlines. Collision: Elena and Ethan trapped in the fire together. What really happened? Collision: brave student risks her life to escape with her fiancé. Collision: is Ethan a hero or just lucky? A slow satisfaction spread through my chest. Ethan had once used the media to turn the world against me. Now I was returning the favor. The moment Ethan woke up, he was met with flashing cameras. His face was pale, his body weak, his injuries severe. The doctors confirmed it. His leg was broken, and he had sustained a severe head injury. He would never be the same. The media swarmed him, microphones shoved in his direction, waiting for him to speak. But when he opened his mouth, his voice came out hoarse, barely a whisper. What happened? And for the first time, no one rushed to defend him. No one gave him the answer. Because I had already told the world my version of the story. 3 days later, Ethan was finally well enough to speak to reporters. And when he did, the damage was already done. By then, the media had painted me as the survivor. "Elena," one of the interviewers had said, voice full of emotion, "can you tell us what happened in the fire?" I lowered my gaze, my fingers trembling slightly, playing the part he had once played so well. I don't remember everything," I murmured. "But Ethan, he was the one who found me in the fire." The crowd leaned in. "He told me we had to escape through the west exit," I continued, just enough truth mixed with the lie. "But then," I hesitated, swallowing hard. "Then what?" The reporter pressed. I let a single tear slip down my cheek. "Something happened on the stairs," I whispered. I didn't say what. I didn't have to. The world filled in the blanks for me. When Ethan finally sat in front of the cameras, ready to tell his side of the story, it was already too late. People didn't believe him anymore. The sympathy, the admiration, gone. Instead, the comments turned against him. Speech balloon. Why won't Ethan explain what really happened? Speech balloon. If he was the hero, why did Elena escape first? Speech balloon. Something isn't adding up. Ethan tried to fight back. He tried to speak his truth. But the world didn't listen. They had already chosen me. His career collapsed overnight. The university he had once bragged about? They distanced themselves from him. The sponsorship deals? Cancelled. The wealthy connections he had once relied on? Gone. His parents, who had once treated him like the perfect son? Humiliated. And the best part? The people who had once worshipped him started to doubt him. He was nothing now. Exactly how he had made me feel. The world no longer belonged to Ethan Vanderbilt. For years he had been the golden boy. The untouchable prince of high society. The man who could do no wrong. But now? He was nothing more than a disgraced liar. The whispers that once praised him now dripped with doubt and suspicion. And Ethan knew it. He sat in his hospital bed, staring at the cold white walls, his hands trembling as he scrolled through his phone. Comment after comment mocked him. Speech balloon. Why is Elena being treated like the hero? What happened to Ethan? Speech balloon. I don't think Ethan's telling the whole truth. Speech balloon, he looks so different now. We used to admire him, but honestly, I feel like we never really knew him. His fingernails dug into his palms, his chest tightening with a rage he had never known before. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. He was supposed to be the hero. Not me. Not the girl he had discarded like a broken toy. The first time he tried to fix it, he failed. He arranged an interview, hoping to take back control of the narrative. But the moment he sat in front of the camera, he saw the hesitation in the reporter's eyes. They didn't trust him anymore. And worse, they didn't care. Elena has already told her side of the story, the reporter said. Do you think you could clarify what really happened that night? Ethan's throat went dry. He had practiced his response, had scripted his words perfectly. But the second he opened his mouth, he realized something chilling. There was nothing he could say that wouldn't make him look guilty. No matter how much he tried to twist it, people already believed me. The very weapon he had used against me in my past life, the media, the public perception, was now being used against him. He had lost control. And then he tried to reach me. I wasn't surprised. When powerful men start to fall, they always reach for the women they once crushed. I saw his name on my phone screen. For a moment, I let my finger hover over the answer button. Then I pressed decline. And I let him suffer in silence. Days passed and the headlines only got worse. Collision: Ethan Vanderbilt's reputation in ruins. What really happened that night? Collision: new reports suggest Ethan's story was fabricated. Collision: Elena's rise. From survivor to star. Everything he had built, everything he thought was his birthright, was being stripped away piece by piece. I knew the moment he finally snapped. Because instead of calling, instead of texting, he showed up. I heard the knocking first. A sharp, desperate sound. I didn't need to check who it was. I already knew. When I finally opened the door, Ethan stood there, his once pristine suit wrinkled, his hair unkempt, his face hollow and tired. He looked nothing like the man I had once loved. Elena, he breathed, his voice shaking. I leaned against the doorway, crossing my arms. You shouldn't be here, Ethan. He swallowed hard. I know, but I had to see you. I needed to talk. I said nothing, because I wanted him to squirm, to feel the silence, the power shift, the unbearable truth that he was no longer in control. I lost everything, he whispered, his voice cracking. The university, the sponsorships, my company. My family doesn't even want to be seen with me anymore. I tilted my head. And what does that have to do with me? He flinched. His jaw tightened, his fists clenching at his sides. Elena, you don't understand. You were supposed to. Supposed to what? I interrupted coldly. Forgive you? Help you? Tell the world that you're actually a good person. He said nothing, because we both knew that's exactly what he wanted. His breathing was ragged. I made mistakes, okay? But we can fix this. You and me. We were always stronger together. I laughed. The sheer audacity of it. I stepped closer, watching him tense. For the first time, he was afraid of me. Good. You don't get it, do you, Ethan? I murmured. I was never strong because of you. I was strong in spite of you. He opened his mouth, but I wasn't done. You trapped me. You took away my freedom. And you thought that no matter what, I would always come back to you. I let my voice drop, soft and final. But I never will. His expression crumbled. I leaned in slightly, just enough for him to hear my final words. You're nothing to me, Ethan. His breath hitched. And then I closed the door in his face. For a long time I just stood there. For the first time in years there was no weight on my shoulders. I had fought. I had won. And I never had to look back again. Because I was finally truly free.